Hello again. We are back with you live from the LinkedIn Hub on day 2 of Advertising Week right here at the Times Center in Times Square, New York. And we are about to wrap up day 2 of Advertising Week, but we have a really interesting guest with us. We have with us Ian Dallimore, who is the Director of Innovative Digital Strategy at Lamar Advertising Company. So Ian, what I loved about when we were chatting is you guys, we're about to have a conversation so different from all the different conversations I've had today, because you guys focus on billboards,
right,
which on the one hand is super old school, right? You know, big billboards that lots of people see. But you were also telling me that you guys have digital billboards, so obviously that opens up the door to so much customization. So let's talk a little bit about that first, and then I'll tell you the first thing that comes to my mind.
Sure.
But we'll save that till after you tell me.
Yeah, and it's the typical response that we get. You know, I work for a company that's 115 years old, and I head up innovation, so it's kind of the opposite to both worlds. You know, but the biggest thing that we do is we use technology, we use data to better serve ad messages from a creative perspective to consumers. So right place, right time, most importantly, right mood of a consumer.
Okay, so you talked about something, important, right place, right time. That's all very important. But the thing that I think is kind of interesting to me is a lot of the people I've spoken to today, a lot of the marketers and advertisers are talking about how now it's all so individual focused.
Sure.
Everything is about the consumer experience, everything is about the ID across platforms and across devices and so on. And you have no way of doing that. You cannot possibly individualize a billboard. It's very different than an ad I see on my mobile phone or an ad I see on my laptop or even an ad I see on my television screen, you know what I mean, which does go out to a lot of people. So how do you still focus on engaging with the consumer on a personal level?
Yeah. You know, so we're not a one-to-one medium, but the one thing that we do is we use mobile data to best describe audience segmentations. So we can figure out what consumer is into health and fitness and running specifically. And then within that, a brand can then dynamically play content throughout that consumer's life pattern throughout their day. So that may include a mobile device, but from point A to point B, there's always a digital billboard or a screen to be a part of that conversation. So we feel that we're a part of that multi-platform, but more importantly, the way we break through is, I like to call delight and surprise with an ad message. So if that runner is all of a sudden hit with an ad that talks to someone that ran 5 miles this morning, it talks to a small cluster of individuals, but during that one specific time frame, it really hits home for that target audience.
But let me ask you a question. I mean, by the nature of it, a billboard is supposed to have maximum reach in a very public place where you're reaching a large sum of people. Like, I just walked through Times Square. You know, there's no way to segment that audience. So how do you still manage to cut through and reach someone in that sense? Or do you not focus on things like Times Square?
Yeah, and Times Square is kind of an anomaly. It's big, bright, and crazy. But if you take it outside of New York City and then you start to put it in, I like to call it everyday America, where our headquarters is in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. As the consumer is driving down the street, let's say in Kansas City, the weather begins to change. A Google campaign specifically that we did was, we basically said, okay, Google, you allow us to tap into your API feed. You tell us what's trending in the Kansas City market, and then based off of traffic conditions, based off of weather time of day, everything, then we're going to display a creative message that talks to that time of day and that specific moment with, let's say, an Outcast, sorry Miss Jackson, because it begins to rain. That's where we kind of break through that kind of clutter and begin to have a conversation. I
think that's such an interesting concept. I mean, the idea of being able to, and you brought up a very good point, and maybe my Times Square example is so not everyday America, like you said. I mean, it is kind of its own bubble of just wow factor. I think everything in Times Square is much more about big and wow rather than really talking to someone personally. But when you get into that, do you feel like the data is really able to allow you to reach, like you were saying, a very segmented group of people, to reach a consumer, because you know the people driving this road are X or Y or Z to a large extent. I mean, not everyone, but you feel like that's something you guys are able to use the data for.
Yeah, and over time what happens is we start to figure out the life patterns of a consumer, and then we'll bring that to brands and we'll say, look, from 10 to 11 a.m., there's a massive amount of stay-at-home moms that Target grocery store can target with XYZ product at that given moment. And look, at the end of the day, we know that, and I feel very strong about this, is no advertising medium alone can withstand a campaign. So our industry has seen quite a bit of a renaissance, if you could call it that.
Of course.
And now, a consumer, like ourselves, we didn't wake up in the morning and said, man, I can't wait to click on that banner ad or see that billboard. But if a brand uses data correctly and has very strong content and creative, then from that multi-screen, from the small screen all the way to the large screen, Times Square, or roadside billboard, or a laptop, if it's done correctly, then through those multi-channels, it's a seamless campaign that's never, it doesn't matter what the medium is that's driving.
Yeah.
So.
That's funny. That's exactly what I've been saying all day. I've been using the word seamless in terms of talking about it across devices and across platforms, and I think that brings to mind something. So you were saying you guys are a 150-year-old company.
Right.
So I'm sure that in the time that you have come in, you have seen the evolution to, we need to be a part of the bigger picture.
Absolutely.
I'm sure it didn't used to be that way. There was a campaign, there was a billboard, we're good.
Right.
And so that transition, tell me a little bit about that transition and really becoming a part of that multi-platform, multi-device world that allows you to be with the consumer through his or her journey.
Right. Yeah, and I've been with Lamar for 11 years, and it's a phenomenal company. So I've seen, and I've heard stories from when our company was first founded in 1902, from where when the opera would come to town, they would literally build posts and post the paintings, to this digital evolution. And it's a lot of work. There's a lot of educating the brands of this perception. And I welcome and I enjoyed your response when you said, oh, you're from an old school billboard company, because that's what we are. But taking data, finding data points, everything that the online and mobile world is doing, and then more importantly, mix in creativity, I think that's where we see this this journey. And we're only in the infancy. My bigger responsibility within our company is the autonomous car, how the connected home and how wearables are able to change. So
crazy.
And that's 15 years from now we'll live in that space. So.
Do you ever get the cynical people who say that you guys are becoming antiquated and it's all about the devices right now?
Yeah, I mean that happens, but it's you could say the same thing about mobile. It's 50% is fraudulent ads. So advertising as a whole, at the end of the day, it's just kind of show me something that's fun and makes sense to me, and that's relevant, and I'll look into it and buy it more. We're smart consumers. We're engaged with 5,000 ads a day. It really doesn't matter where the ad comes from. It's how beautifully is it done, and I think that we in the outdoor space it's the people's space. So let's make sure that the brands that are using it to the best of its ability. So.
Well, I have to tell you, just from listening to you, even though I started the interview thinking, wow, and the first thing that I said to you was how old school. But I have to tell you that I think it is pretty amazing that you guys have been able to, adapt with the times and still make the most of data to be able to bring the outdoors, marketing to the 21st century, to keep it very relevant, to keep it, I think, a key platform amongst the platforms that are out there. Because, like I said, I didn't even think about it. I didn't think. We've talked so much about devices all day, 2 days. I haven't heard one person say the word outdoors. And I think that you've made an amazing case for making sure that it is part of that complete seamless circle. So. Keep it up. It's really cool. I look forward to seeing what happens with more wow billboards everywhere.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Ian.
Thank you.
Stay tuned. We've got more for you right here in the LinkedIn Hub on day 2 of Advertising Week, right here in Times Square.